My name's Gary Johnson. I'm a full-time fire captain with Sonoma Valley Fire up in the city of Sonoma. We cover about 105 square miles of area, 4 staff stations, 2 ALS ambulances, wildland engines, urban search and rescue trailer, and then I also was the founder of the first fire-based animal technical rescue team in the North State. We have a fully equipped trailer and a lot of help with the halter project for funding that trailer and equipment. So a little bit about my background, 22 years in the fire service, started with CAL FIRE up in Mendocino County. Worked there, worked in the Emergency Communications Center in dispatch for CAL FIRE for 3 years. Helped dispatch CalStar 4 out of that center. EMS, fire, response for all Mendocino County. 911 call taker. Oh. I don't know what that is. 911 phone call taker at the same time. After that, went to Lake Napa counties and worked as an engineer for CAL FIRE out of St. Helena, and then went to Sonoma Valley Fire and been there for 15 years now. Paramedic for over 16 years. Wildland experience, obviously a lot, up and down the whole state from Wairika all the way to San Diego and east and west, been all over. I'm also, for wildland incidents, I'm a Fireline medic. So we go out and treat guys that get injured on the line. And also a heavy equipment boss. So I help coordinate the heavy equipment, bulldozers, water tenders, and that stuff. So we have a program in the North State, it's called SCOPE, and it's Sonoma Citizens Organized to Prepare for Emergencies. So it's like neighborhood groups. We try to get 10 or 15 houses as a neighborhood group and work together, find out what everybody's needs are, find out what kind of equipment, oh, I have a generator we can use, or I'm a nurse, I can help out if somebody gets injured, oh, I'm a retired cop, a retired fireman, whatever it may be in that neighborhood. But start communicating with your neighbors, because I'm sure you guys saw during the Thomas fire, we definitely saw it during our fires of 17 and 18 up north, there's not enough of fire personnel out there to get to every house. And it's gonna be you personally to take that on and try to prepare for that. We've all been hearing about the earthquake that's gonna happen, the big one. So that's probably, besides fire, that'll be probably our next big, humongous disaster that's gonna pretty much cripple the whole state for response. It's gonna take a long time for response to get there. The anniversary a few weeks ago in January was the Cascadia subduction zone earthquake off of Oregon coast. It was a 9.2 that lasted for 5 minutes. 9.2 for 5 minutes. It wasn't that far off the coast. It was like within 10 miles of the coast. It did an 80-foot tsunami wave that hit all the way across all Asia, the Philippines, and all that. So that was, it's like the anniversary was like 328-year anniversary. So they say it's going to happen again. Just like in the North State, the San Andreas Fault's going to happen again. Yeah. So let's dive into it. So big thing is look up, look down, look all around. Always look around what's going on around you. Okay? Look up in the air, things that fall on you. Look down below, where am I going to fall into? And just all around in general. I park on the top of parking structures. I don't want to be a squished pancake in all the other floors. That's just me, but that's situational awareness. I don't walk down the sidewalk, and when I see the PG&E grates that are on the sidewalk, I walk around them, because there's been incidents where they explode or catch fire or cause electricity into those grates. So it's that situational awareness wherever you may be, okay? Always, 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 if you see a hazard, mark it and notify the authorities or others around you. So you have an earthquake at your house and your chimney's fallen over, flag it off. Put cones out there. Tell everybody in your house, everybody else in your household that, hey, our chimney's fallen away from the house. Nobody walk on that side of the house. It might fall down, okay? So today we're going to talk about power lines, safety, natural and propane gas, hazardous materials, earthquakes, floods and landslides. Where are we at in this valley? Can we have a flood here? Yes? Right where we are, right? So we have the dam right up the road. So, you know, be aware of where you're located. If this is your first time here, hey, there's a hazard right up the road that is just waiting to happen. We all saw the Lake Oroville Dam problems. It's a still ongoing problem in the state. Also our levee systems too. They're just really, there's so many that to inspect and make them, and funding to make them sustainable. We'll get a little bit of fire, but probably skip over that because I'm going to go into really in depth into fire, and then just some little hazards that we come across. So power lines, always, always, always consider them as live lines. Any wire that you see down, even if you're a Comcast, AT&T expert, just treat every line that's down that it's live. Any line that's down is live. Worst call that I go to are wires down and gas leaks. Hate them, okay? Because just never know. Never know what's actually has electricity flowing through it or not, okay? Always observe from at least 30 feet away, minimal. So if there's a line down at the back of the room, this is about as close as I want to be. I don't need to go and see it. I see that there's a wire down. I don't need to go really inspect it. Leave that up to the professionals, okay? And I'm going to mark it off. So I'm going to put cones or flagging around it. Who's on an evac team here?
Or equines?
Yeah, equine or carts. Okay, so there's 8 or 9. You know, keep a piece of flagging with you, okay? Keep some flagging with you. It doesn't matter what color. I'll show you later exactly what the fire service does, but even if you put one piece of flagging, at least somebody's gonna stop and hopefully say, what's going on? Why is this flagged off? Okay? Smoke. Heavy, dense smoke has particles in it that are unburned. Those big metal power line structures that are carrying a lot of power can actually energize the air through that smoke. So if you're around it and in that dense smoke, just be aware that you can still get electrocuted in the smoke, okay? So if you're evacuating animals in those heavy, heavy smoked areas where there's a lot of power, just be cautious that energy can flow through the smoke. Fences, you're gonna be touching fences to open gates, okay? Where are those power lines crossing in that property, okay? If the power line hit the fence and dropped on the barbed wire down there, when I touch this gate, there's a chance that that gate is energized. So be cautious, that's that, look up, where are those power lines at? Okay, are they intact? Yes, I see that they're still up in the air. Okay, I'm probably safe to open this gate. Okay. Always try to stay in your car unless it's on fire, obviously. Then it's last resort, you're gonna have to get out, okay? So, power poles, lots of wires on them. I'm not an expert, okay? Leave it up to PG&E or Edison, whoever's your power company, okay, to tell you that it's down. We have service drops that are usually black with white or gray cables that are twisted together that come to a weatherhead on above your meter. So if you're on the working on the roof or throwing a ladder against your house, you hit that, there's a potential of getting electrocuted. So just be aware of where that enters your house. If new developments or some older, you can get it underground. So if you're gonna go dig in the yard with a tractor, call 811, free service, USA comes out, surveys your property, and marks out where the power, gas, sewer, all those lines are. Okay? Questions? So I put this in here, backfeeding the power. Okay, where there's the cannabis grows, the illegal grows, they're tapping into the PG&E boxes before the power. So there's a potential of them regenerating power and pushing it back through the line. So even though PG&E or South, who's the power down here? Edison? Edison. If they say the power's off, their side of the power's off. But that doesn't mean every homeowner's power is off, because if these illegal taps are happening, there could be energy going back into the power line. So yeah, that power line's safe. I usually wait until PG&E or Edison gets there and picks up that line with their own hand, okay? They go through a huge safety inspection on their gloves every morning, and a pinhole in their glove could kill them. Okay, so they have a whole morning inspection of their gloves, and even before they go and touch a line, they inspect those gloves. Okay, so there's generators and solar now. You can buy solar panels and put in a system by yourself. It's not that difficult. So if they don't have the right transfer switches installed, they can be backfeeding the system. Okay, we had, right after our fires in 17, we had tons of people throwing generators in their houses. Okay, we burnt down 3 additional houses during our fires 2 weeks after the first wave of fires, because people caught their own houses on fire with generators. Okay, so generator safety is big too. Power lines, this picture's hard to see, but you see weird patterns on the ground. There's probably a power line in the area or something underground that caused that to burn that way. So be on the lookout. You can kind of see some power lines right here dangling down, but the fire's way over here. So why? Because the ground's been energized and it just found a weak spot right there to show itself. Okay, that's why we want to stay 35 feet at least away. There's a gentleman standing here right next to these down power lines. We don't need to be that close. Okay, there's no need. We know the power lines are down. That's all we need to know. Call the authorities, move on, okay? Sorry if I'm blocking you. Propane versus natural gas. Natural gas is lighter than air, so it's gonna lift and go up into the air and dissipate, okay? Propane is heavier than air, so it's gonna sink down lower to the ground, okay? Who's on propane at their house? Okay, about half, okay? Standard size tank, how many gallons is your tank? Do you know? 250 is average. A bigger property might have 500, a ranch may have a 1,000-gallon tank, okay? We're gonna talk just on a 250-gallon tank, and you'll see a video here in a minute of how explosive those can be, just 250 gallons. Minimum evacuation distance, if they are impinging, if flames are touching the tank, is a half a mile minimum. Okay, so those evac people, you'll see the video, but if you hear those relief valves going off, or you see a tank getting directly hit with flame, you need to tell everybody, sorry, this property is not where we need to be. We need to move on. Okay, that's that situational awareness. Move on to the next property. Sorry. I don't know if Santa Barbara County has an ordinance, but look at your own ordinances in your counties. Where we are, right after our fires, our county did new safety ordinance. 10-foot minimum clearance, bare dirt around any propane tank. Okay, and you'll see why in a second. Propane expands 270 times its volume. Okay, that's why it's so explosive. It's in a compressed cylinder, and once it explodes, the potential's 270 times.
When a tank is exposed to sustained heat, such as from a fire, the liquid within the tank is forced to boil or vaporize, resulting in increased pressure in the tank. prevent overstressing the tank, the relief device activates, venting the excess pressure.
That sounds like a jet engine.
As pressure decreases in the tank, the valve begins to close. With continued heating, pressure again builds, causing the relief valve to reopen. Where flames impinge on the tank below the liquid level, the liquid absorbs the heat, allowing the tank metal to remain at a safe temperature. With continued relief valve operation, the liquid level drops, exposing a greater area of the tank to the effects of heating. With the flames impinging on the vapor space of the tank, the temperature of the tank metal, uncooled by liquid, rises. At some point, due to the vapor pressure from within, the tank metal begins to weaken, stretch, and eventually tear. As the tank comes apart, large quantities of both liquid and vapor are released in a powerful explosion. The heat radiated is sufficient to ignite combustibles and cause burns great distances from the explosion. Tank sections containing rapidly igniting fuel can become flying missiles, traveling great distances, causing secondary fires and other damage. It all happens quickly, with little warning.
So I've been around them when they do that, not fun. Okay, we had a 1,000-gallon tank that ruptured, and half of that tank went a quarter of a mile through like 5 RVs. Okay, so take it seriously. If you hear that relief valve, you're evacuating animals and you're in the woods and now you hear this jet engine roar, if it's not the air tankers, it's time to start figuring out what that sound is and where it's coming from and leave the area, okay? So how do we detect it? We have our senses, right? They put mercaptan, which is that rotten egg smell, in the mix of natural and propane gas. So use your senses, use your smell. Sound, we can hear that jet engine sound, okay? And sight, sometimes we can see it from a distance. You know, why is this 40-foot flame, this narrow flame shooting straight in the air? Okay, or if it's underground gas line, there's all this dust flying in the middle of the parking lot. Well, that's kind of odd, right? So we need to investigate it, okay? Other clues are those signs that you see in the middle of the nowhere or on the side of a road. So there's some kind of gas line. It might be hydrocarbons or it might be a gas of a liquid or a gas. Anything can set that gas off, okay? Cell phones, garage door clicker, any little static electricity. Another big one right now is the synthetic grass people are putting out in their yards. You know, us just walking across that turf is going to have enough static electricity to ignite flammable gas, okay? How do we turn off our gas? If you have a regular meter, there's a pipe usually coming out of the ground on one side. It's going to have like a quarter turn valve on it. And if it's straight in line with the pipe, that's open. If you turn it 90 degrees, it's going to be across the pipe. Okay, that's going to be off. Go home right now and look at your gas meter. Look at, if you don't have a smart meter with the digital display, if you still have the old style with the dials, look and see what a normal day looks like. Okay, I have my heater on, my water heater on, and just see how fast those are spinning. After an earthquake, go out and look at it and see if it's still about that same speed. If it's really spinning, you probably have a gas leak and that's the time to shut it off, okay? If you have a propane or LPG tank, here's your gas line going usually underground away from the tank, and then you're gonna have a regular, almost like a hose spigot, round valve. You're just gonna turn it to the right to tighten it down, okay? Big question I get asked all the time. When we're evacuating, should I shut off my gas? I can't say yes or no. Okay, it's going to be your decision. In an earthquake, I would definitely use my senses. Okay, go around my house smelling, visualizing if I hear anything hissing out behind an appliance, or go outside and look at my gauges. Okay, we have a huge earthquake. It's going to impact a huge area. Who can turn the gas back on? Gas company. When's your house on the list? We ran through that during our fires, even with the power safety shutoffs that we're having up in the north. I don't know how much you guys have it down here, but they started shutting gas lines off. And it never even impacted the town, but half of Santa Rosa, it took 2.5 weeks to get the gas back on. So that was very isolated. So if it's in the middle of winter like this, are you willing to give up your heat and cooking, if you just go and shut your gas off right away? So it's up to you. Hazardous materials, always safety first, isolate, deny entry. We have all these placards, these hazard placards. Who has 10 gallons of gas or diesel in the shed or more? Okay, no? A few? Okay, do you have one of these on your shed? Okay, this is an NFPA placard 704. This is regular gasoline or diesel placard. If you have 10 gallons of gasoline or diesel in a shed, this should be on the outside of that shed. This is a hazard warning to fire personnel and anyone else that comes on your property to let you know that there's a hazard that exists inside that building. Okay? The blue is health hazard, so usually respiratory. The numbers go from 0 to 4, 4 being the worst. Okay? Red is flammability. It depends on temperatures, is how the numbers increase. Yellow is going to be reactivity with like radiation. Okay? And then the white spot is usually special hazard. So this W with the line through it means don't put water on me. Okay, whatever that chemical is inside that place. Okay, because it's going to have a reaction to it. There's a SA that's usually down here. That's an asphyxiant. So it's taking oxygen out of the air. So if that chemical is released, it's going to take the oxygen out of the air. If you walk in that building, you're going to collapse and die because of lack of oxygen. Okay, so you might see these. You usually see them at auto garages, auto parts stores, and such. So be on the lookout for these. Okay, Department of Transportation placards. Has everybody seen this one? Gasoline. Okay, gasoline truck. There's some identifying marks on here. So if the label's ripped off half on a container, we could usually pick it out in a book, and I'll show you which book we use next. Okay, if I don't see that and I just see a 3 with red around it, I can still identify that product. So there's multiple ways of looking at these symbols, and there's a bunch of them that you see driving down the highway. This is international standards. Okay, so we get products from China, South Korea, or whatever. They're going to have the same format of placarding. What else do we have at home? Every cleaning supply known to man under our sinks. What happens when we mix them? Anything, right? So be careful. Evac teams, you go into a house that's been burnt down. These chemicals exist out there. You might not see them. But now you're breathing that smoke that you think is just the wood timbers burning left of that house. It could be a chemical gas. Be careful, okay? Always approach upwind and up a hill. We don't want to be walking through this stuff. Even though it might look like water, we don't know, okay? Just stay out of the wet area, okay? Again, look for those symbols, those identifying marks, if they have them. And listen for any chemical reaction. If you hear a hissing, bubbling sound, there's some kind of reaction mixing somewhere. There's an ERG, it's an emergency response guide phone app, and it's usually free. It's an international book, that's why there's the whole world's on the book. And it goes through, you know, it's got, I don't know, probably 4,000 of the common chemicals in it. And it gives you a rundown of if there's a small spill, what should we do? If there's a large spill, what should we do? If it's on fire, what should we do? What kind of protective equipment should we be wearing or even not go near it? If it's involved in fire or a leak, how far away should we be? So there's a lot of good information on there. And you can get it right off your phone. I can guarantee every fire engine in the state has one, either the hard book or on their phone with them. There's another one that's called Hazmatevac App, which is really nice. Technology is getting better and better. I can put a known chemical right here with the weather forecast and wind, and it'll tell me to evacuate 10 miles that way. Okay, and then I can push roadblocks, and it'll put markers at each road that should be blocked off. And I can snapshot that right to the law enforcement, and they can set up roadblocks at those intersections. So we use it quite a bit. It's very nice. Earthquakes. Obviously, your safety first. California's got pretty good building standards compared to anywhere else in the country. Usually we're pretty safe on our construction unless you have a very old building. Okay, so we want to strengthen your home. Find a safe room somewhere in each spot of your house. Okay, find a safe area. I don't want to go into the dining room where I have all my nice decorated plates hanging on the wall where those can come and fall and hit on me. Okay, find a nice safe spot in each room of your house. Always have a self-preparedness plan. During the earthquake, no different than we've been taught for years, drop, cover, and hold on. Hold on is big, right? If you have a 9.2 that lasts for 5 minutes, you better be holding on to something because you're just gonna be a rag doll flying around the room, okay? Always stay inside the building because you're probably safer in the building. There's a lot of other hazards that are outside. Power lines falling, trees falling, anything else falling that could come down on the ground opening up. So stay inside your house until the shaking stops and then start assessing your property. If you're in a vehicle, pull over, same thing, to a clear spot. Don't be parking on a bridge, don't be parking under a bridge. Find a clear spot in the road. After the quake, our family first, so assess your family. Is everybody okay? Assess your house, okay? Start looking for gas leaks, water leaks, okay? Electrical problems, you might have to shut off your main power. You know, learn how to do that now, before the emergency. Just like Vicki said, you don't want to be running around in a time of panic to try to figure out where's this, where's that. The gas valves, you know, go out there and spray paint them a color so you know exactly which valve. If you're not home, she can do it, you know, or vice versa, okay? Make it visible. Then start going out to your neighbors. What do they need? What do they need help with? If you're already in your community neighborhood groups, you know who's priority 1, priority 2, priority 3 of who to go and assess. Don't travel to damaged areas. Fire service, emergency services are out there doing what we need to do. We don't need to be dealing with a bunch of other people, okay? Do you have food, enough food? Do you have water? Do you have extra medications? If you're a diabetic, you need to have 30-day supply because what if the pharmacy's in a rubble pile? Where are you gonna go get your meds? How long can you go without your meds? Okay. Emergency power and heat. Do we have generators? Do we have portable heaters that we can supply ourselves with? If you have an old style water heater, you know, you have 40 to 50 gallons of fresh water right in there to use. So instead of saving all these 1-gallon jugs all throughout your house or in your garage, you have 50 gallons of water in a tank sitting there. Okay, bathtub, after earthquake, fill up your bathtub. 50 to 80 gallons of more water that you can use eventually, you know, if you boil it or whatever. Fill up buckets, because you never know. Water lines start rupturing. The water agencies want to save that water. They're going to cut everybody off.
Use your pool.
Yeah, if you have a swimming pool, use your pool. If you have storage tanks, you're going to be using that. So just start storing that water right after the earthquake, because you just never know.
Back to the
Yeah.
I had this discussion with somebody and they thought, well, if your water's off, but a lot of people forget that there's a tap on your hot water heater
Yeah.
to drain it. That's when you can get it out if you don't have water.
Yeah, and if you look at the instruction manual, you're supposed to drain your water heater once a year. And I can guarantee you when you turn yours on, if it's been 5 or 6 years, you're going to get a pile of rust first. Vicki?
Gary, something that I heard a while ago was about if you have a water that's possibly contaminated, you can put like a drop or two or something to put bleach in it.
Yeah, there's different products that you can actually buy to sanitize water. Obviously, boiling's the best, and then there's other sanitizers. There is bleach. There's a bleach to gallons of water recommended, but it's still not going to kill everything. But if you're in a house and it's your water heater, you probably could drink it straight. You know, even not boiling, it's probably fine. Yeah.
I wanted to make a comment that with the electrical shutoffs, I use the exact procedure now. When I hear they're going to potentially shut us off, I have water by the toilets, I fill up the bathtub, all that, just because we're on a well.
Yeah, if you're on a well, you gotta start storing, right? Landslides, I don't think I have to cover too much around here. You know, but if you start seeing seeping water out of your property, if you're on a hillside, seeping water that you've I've never seen water drain out of that section before. My fence is starting to get misaligned in that section. Boulders are starting to show itself on your hillside. Trees are starting to lean over. Those are all precursors to a potential landslide. Okay, so be that situational awareness. There's a big storm coming, or there's multiple storms coming. Keep an eye on your property where you are. Okay. Find out if you're in a floodplain. The Montecito picture. You know, after fires, there's that potential. Okay. Usually the county puts out maps of where they think there's the potential. You know, stay heads up. Stay heads up. Flood maps, you can get them. I'll show you a website here that they California Emergency Management Agency just came up with that you can put in your physical address, and it'll show you where you are. If you're in a fire hazard area, a flood hazard area, and you can look at the maps and see it.
Your house, you probably
Yeah, usually
your insurance.
your insurance. Yeah.
Could you say the name of the link out loud?
Yeah, I will. I'll say it when it comes up. Yeah. Another big one is the NOAA radios. Okay, National Oceanic Atmospheric Association. Those NOAA radios. Our county is really pushing it for everybody to have, because there's certain models that as soon as the emergency alert system goes off, it'll turn on that radio. You don't even have to have it on. There's a lot of different models. You can go from $20 to $300, but $60 to $80 is usually the ones that kick on automatically. I'm not sure if Santa Barbara County does yearly tests on that. We've had like 3 or 4 tests. They usually work about 99.5% of the time, even in big canyons and such, because it's radio waves, it's not based off a cell. So if you live in a deep canyon, those are good radios to have just as a backup. Stay off roadways and bridges during floods, because you never know what impacted those bridges underwater. The roads could be washed out. Drainage pipes, culverts could be washed out, and it might look like a road, but underneath it's not. So just be cautious when you're driving around. Water contamination, if you have a well, you know, have duct tape and plastic to maybe cover your well cap if you know you're going to get flooded, so that contaminated water is not dropping into your well. Always after a flood, if you are impacted, get your water tested before you start just drinking it. Okay. Drive to stay alive. turn back. If the road's got running water over it, turn back. 2 feet of water will push a car. Okay, 6 inches of water could take you off your feet, depending on the current. Okay, so if you see flooding over a road, just turn back. It's not worth it. It's not worth chancing it. As you've seen probably tons of videos of people having to get rescued. Okay, and you know, if you're wading around in the water, what's under that water? There's a lot of hazards under that water, plus what's in that water. Sewage, everything else. All those chemicals we talked about, they're floating in that water somewhere. So here's some underwater hazards. Septic tanks, the lids floated away. Now you're walking around and drop in. Manholes, same thing. During the campfire, 2 canine USAR dogs fell into septic tanks. Okay, so evac teams, when you're going out doing maybe shelter in place after the event, be on the lookout. Maybe those lids burned off. Okay, be on the lookout. This was our floods of last year in Guerneville, I mean, and just a pile of debris. There's pallets in there, wire, fences that once the water receded, it just piled up right there. Also right here, it's hard to see, is 2 propane tanks that got floated away. Okay, during the 2005 flood in Sonoma, we had a 500-gallon propane tank going down the stream, and it was hitting the bridges as it went through. And it was like we had to follow it all the way until it made it to the ocean. So just there's a lot of debris floating in that water. Okay. Properly immunize your animals before the flood. Okay, there's a lot of vaccinations that you can get for your animals, dogs, cats, and equines. So check with your vet, find out what you can give before the emergency. If you run dairies, have a standby for milk pickups so that your cattle are getting what they need. Move your hay and grain out of reach of where you think that floodwater might reach, so you're not wasting it and spoiling it. Or your animals during the flood, if you had to leave and they're staying there and now they're eating that moldy hay, you know, this is just not good. If you have manure ponds, maybe you have to provide more riprap to keep them intact. Okay, so if you have manure ponds, move your machinery to higher ground so you can save it. Also, your pesticides and any chemicals that you have stored in your shed, you know, move it out. Move it out. Get it to higher ground before the flood comes. You know, that's the nice thing about floods. We usually know when they're going to happen. We have a 2 or 3 day warning. So that's the time to get going. Okay. We think this is going to be the worst storm of the year. Okay. We need to start moving some stuff. Get it prepared now. Don't wait until the water's 4 inches up in your property and now it's too late. After the flood, you know, try to move your animals to higher ground. You can also mound up your ground in a certain area, depending on how many animals you have. But at least give them an escape route to go to, and we'll talk about escape routes and fire in a little bit. But give them a chance to get out of that water beforehand. So if you can mound up a small area of your property, you know, that might provide just enough for them to get out of the water, okay? Or at least up to their knees, okay? So it's called My Hazards, and the link is myhazards.cal.oes.ca.gov, and you just type in your address and push search, and it'll tell you where you live, what hazards are around you. Okay. myhazards.cal.oes.ca.gov.
Are you guys tracking tornadoes now? California's having.
Yeah, they're having more tornadoes, but
I'm in the Central Valley.
yeah.
preparing to move down here, but we've had 12 so far.
Yeah. Weather's getting crazy. We had a tornado
I'm doing earth
right downtown city of Santa Rosa a couple years ago.
tornado.
Yeah.
No idea.
Just fire safety general tips, visible address from both ways of travel, okay? Have nice, clear address signs, because we can't find you. If you need help, we can't find you. Just on a normal day, without any event, if you just have a medical emergency, we can't find you without an address, so make sure it's visible. Make sure you're mounted on a metal post. I went to a fire down in Manteca a few years ago on these rural roads, and you could tell that there was like 40 mailboxes with every address laying across each other. Well, where is that address on this road? So, and if you have a road that has multiple intersections, put arrows, 1, 2, 3s to the right. Okay, and any change of direction along the way. It just helps us for everyday emergencies and for fire. Roadway clearance. They don't make fire engines smaller anymore. California EPA laws are making us go higher and higher because we have to put so many extra components on it. So what we're looking for is minimum of 15-foot clearance, which they're not that tall, but about 13 feet if you had to. And 15 foot wide, okay? Our engines are about 9 feet wide, but that gives us that little safe barrier on both sides of the road if there's fire impacting the road, okay? CAL FIRE has a Ready for Wildfire app that kind of got discontinued, but you can still get it. It's a good walk around your property app that you can look around and say, okay, I've done this, done that. Yeah, the new website is up. Okay, yeah. It's kind of weird how they changed and updated it. They were sending all these texts like, oh, get ready, get ready, get ready, but nothing really changed, I thought. But defensible space, you've probably seen it a ton of times. Just do it. We're not talking about clear cutting your property. There's different ways of doing it. So just work with your fire service. That goes for your house, but it goes for your barn. It goes for your stalls, hay storage. Try to do it for all your buildings and give your animals that chance too, okay? Evacuate early, have a plan. Where will my animals go when we do evacuate? Do I have a sister ranch? Do I have friends that I can bring my animals to? We don't want to impact the animal shelters, okay? Let's try to take care of ourselves first. Get ready. If you're in that fire area and you're getting that pre-evacuation warning, hey, it's time to put long pants on, long sleeve cotton shirts. Get my goggles ready, because if the worst happens, you're prepared before it hits. Have 2 escape routes planned out of your property. I'm going to go, if the fire comes from this way, I'm going to go out this road. If fire comes from this way, I'm going to go out this road. A lot of areas after our fires didn't have 2 ways out. We had a subdivision of 50 homes that only had 1 road in and 1 road out. It wasn't until after the fire that it was kind of brought to our attention at the fire department about this, that they never really had 2 ways out. So I worked with a landowner that had an open field and a couple gates, and he gave free access to those the homeowners to escape out his property to the back end. Same with a couple of our wineries, opened up their gates to have some people go through their property, the vineyards, to get out. So start having those neighborhood conversations. Who can we talk to get those 2 ways out if you're stuck on a 1-lane road or a safe area? Do you have a question?
One thing that's really important, and probably a lot of people may not train, is that I own a ranch and I have so many boarders that expect that I'm going to evacuate their first. Well, I evacuate my own and get me home first.
Yeah.
So, if you own a horse, you should have your own trap.
Yeah. Yeah, and I have a lot of knowledge on the evac side too, but you know, not every animal needs to be evacuated, okay? So if you can do your defensible space on your property, have another corral set up or round pen where you can move your animals to away from vegetation, that's gonna be their safest spot. And the
Big equestrian operations often have these great big units.
yeah.
As long as you know you don't have stallions, but if you throw them in there with it.
Perfect example is Julie and Tom were ground zero for one of our fires at their ranch, and they moved all their animals into their arena because they were stuck. They had fire completely around them.
Well, what if you've got like an operation with 80 horses?
Right.
And there's maybe 1 or 2 roads?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how many rigs you have.
Yeah. And if you don't have a trailer, that's when you need to prepare, okay? Because you can't rely on people coming in to get your animals. If you're stuck, where you're gonna go. So we'll talk about the safety zones in a little bit. If you have animals, obviously we want to try to evacuate early. If we have to shelter in place, have them in a safe spot. Kind of what we just talked about, sturdy fencing, the right kind of fencing. So if you have sheep, goats, make sure they're the right fencing, not just open fencings. If you're, you know, last resort, try to direct them into that lower, you know, maybe they were in this pasture and we moved them to this pasture, maybe we need to move them back to the pasture they just fed in. You know, even though the grass might be 6 inches high, it's better than a foot high over here. Yeah. Yep.
When you're talking about defensible space, because I go to look at a lot of properties, and I always tell them, if you look around at what's burnable, and if they have different kinds of animals, I say, start now and go on Craigslist and find the different kennels that they have for animals, because a lot of them have huge dog runs and things like that. Get a storage in that open area, and that way when you have multiple animals that you can shelter in place, you have a way to contain them, and you're already set.
Yeah.
Craigslist is great for getting.
Yeah. And plan ahead. If you don't know, because you're not fire savvy and know how fire burns and all that, I'm going to try to teach you a little bit of it today. But if you don't, I'm sure your fire service around you will come out and tell you, hey, this is probably the safest spot of your property that I would say this is where you should set something up. Okay, so work with your local fire. So it's hard to see in this picture, but this grass is about 1 foot high. This grass is about 4 inches high. There's different things. It's not saying they're safer in that pasture, doesn't mean that they're going to be completely safe, okay? Depending on wind influence and topography, slope or no slope, on 4 inches of grass, during our last Kincaid fire in November, we had 40-foot flames off 4 inches of grass. So it's not saying they're not going to get hurt, but they're safer than 1 foot of grass, okay? Post-fire, assess your property. This is a burned out bridge. We'll talk about it in the fire class about bridges. This is a burned up culvert, a plastic culvert that actually melted. So when you're driving on roads, just be cautious of any of those little crossings of drainages that there could be a chance that that culvert's not intact anymore, and you're driving with your horses loaded up, you might fall into the road. So it might be smart to stop the truck, get out, and make sure that that culvert's still intact or not burned, okay? Mine shafts, I don't know if you guys have those around here, but in the Sierras they do. Again, septic tank lids, well lids, you know, did those burn or not burn? Did they melt and fall in? Just be cautious, looking around on the ground where you're walking. Secure utilities, just like we saw earlier. You know, if you smell something, see something, go ahead and turn it off. That's a water valve, works the same way as a gas valve. After a fire, white ash. You see a big patch of white ash. It could be an old stump that burned. It could be roots that burned, or a big log that burned. White ash could potentially still be scalding hot, thousands of degrees. You walk in it, your boots start melting, okay? Every year we have about 10 California firefighters that fall into stump holes especially in the timber areas more, but they fall in, 3rd-degree burns up to their hips because they're stuck in this hole. So be cautious when you're walking around the area of, especially white ash, because something burnt hot for a long time at that spot. Post-fire, again, monitor those radios, TVs, what's happening, where's the fire at now. We talked a little bit about roadway hazards. Insects and reptiles, they're out there. They're gonna start coming back out after the fire. These are fire beetles. They're about an inch, inch and a half long. They have some infrared sensing system. They'll fly up to 1,000 miles away to come and lay their eggs in a fire zone, okay? They're not dangerous, but they are annoying. They'll bite you, okay? They don't draw blood, but it's a good pinch, and they like going down your collars. So just be aware, they're out there. At the rim fire in Yosemite when I was down there was millions of those things, and all day you're just trying to get them off your neck. Water contamination and your hazmat problems we kind of talked about. Burned up trees, this is a hard picture to see, but one side of the tree it looks fine. You walk around the other side and it's still burning. So when you're walking around properties or doing evac, be heads up. We kill firefighters every year from falling trees or branches that fall out of trees. So be heads up. You should always, evac teams should always be wearing a helmet. Not gonna say it's gonna save your life, but it might stop the blow a little bit. Narrow roads, be careful. Driving on narrow roads, we don't need to be flying around these roads, okay? There's emergency personnel coming maybe the opposite way, okay? We're not gonna have our sirens on for 2 weeks, okay? So headlights on, if you're evacuating, drive slow, you know, come around a blind turn, just, you know, try to creep around that turn so that if somebody's coming the other way. A lot of these fires, like the campfire, are crime scenes, okay? We're doing evac of animals, be on the lookout. If you see something, say something, and it's time to leave that property. Even if there's animals there, it's time to go up the chain, to talk to the sheriff, what do you want us to do, okay? So those are crime scenes. Deceased animals, have a plan. Do we just throw them in the back seat of our car and bring them to the shelter? No, that was happening on certain fires, okay? There's procedures for that. So know what your local procedures are. Wildlife, leave it up to the wildlife experts. Also, they're out there after fires. Plenty of times we've had bears come right up to fire engines, okay? Mountain lions doing the same thing. They're disoriented, they're lost, they don't know what's going on, okay? Or burned. Yeah. Animal-specific hazards, do what your mission is. If you're on an evac team, do that mission. You're not a fireman, okay? Don't start grabbing hoses from people's house and start putting out fires, okay? Notify us, let us do that, you stay on your mission task, okay? Why do firefighters die every year? These are kind of old statistics. Driving, 25%. Okay, that's why we need to be driving slow on the roads. Every briefing that I've been to on fires up and down the state, every time, at some point in the incident, 2 fire engines crashed today, or collided today, or hit each other. Okay, just be heads up driving. Overstressed or medical reasons, 42%. So if you're on an evac team, be physically fit. Okay, we all want to do that, and that's what we want to do, but know your limitations, okay? And then the last one, struck by falling objects, 6%. Okay, that's those tree hazards that are coming down, okay? Do you have the leadership style to do this? Can you tell that friend that is an animal lover and wants to go out and do this, can you tell them that your safety is more important? Safety priorities is yours, your team, other public that are still in the area, if you're doing an evac team, And then fourth are the animals. Animals come last, humans first, okay? You've got to get that ingrained in your head. It's tough, but humans first. If you're on an evac team, change your attitude from can we do this to can we survive this? Okay, going up that 1-lane road, can we survive going up that 1-lane road? Or are we more focused on getting those animals out? Okay, can we survive going on this mission? Trailers, trailer inspections, there's a hole in the floor under the mat, you know, check out your trailers. Okay, people wash them out and don't think about what's underneath. Flip up those mats every once in a while, check them out, make sure that the floor is still intact. Hitches, make sure you have the right hitch for what you're hauling. Those are rated, and they have ratings on them. They'll break the ball off the trailer, okay, or off the truck. So make sure that those are at the right weight limits. Have you had any type of training? Okay. Communications, always on any death investigation for wildland firefighters, communication is always on there, guaranteed. There's a communication failure at some point. Either a briefing, they had the wrong frequencies, they didn't have the radio with them, there was some kind of communication failure. Communication is huge, and we'll get into that in a little bit more in depth. But it's not just radios, okay? If you're on an evac team, if you guys have shirts or whatever, you know, have them on. I don't know who you are. I see you like that, you're a citizen to me. If I worked with you and I see a heat shirt, okay, I know who heat is, okay? I trust them to be out here or whatever the situation may be. But make sure you're identified, your vehicles are identified if you have any identification. We've had a lot of problems, and that's why I kind of got into this, is more recently with the community animal response teams, is we've had a huge problem with just people coming out on fires trying to do what they can, okay? They cause a lot of problems if it's not organized or in the ICS structure, okay? Make sure you check in and check out with your crews or whoever's supervising you so they know that you're safe now once you're off shift. Always get a briefing. If you're working at the shelter, get a briefing. Know what's going on. If you're going on the evac team, definitely have a good briefing on all that, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Always have communications with you available and a backup. Okay, what if an hour goes by and we haven't heard from them? What's the plan? Okay. Heat stress, again, goes back to why are people dying? 46%. Okay. Check on everybody. If you're on the evac teams or even in the shelters, you know, hey, how are you doing today? Have you had any water? Have you eaten today? You know, we need to look out for each other. People start getting confused or lack of sleep, right? We're out there long hours. And now people are kind of doing weird things like, why did you do that? Or why did he do that? Well, we need to ask some questions, make sure their mind is still in it, okay? Take breaks, eat water, or drink water, eat. Another big one that's kind of come out more recently is these exposures to carbon monoxide on these big fires, okay? Same symptoms as fatigue, so there's that, okay, is this just fatigue or is this carbon monoxide poisoning? There are tools, EMS has tools that is just like a pulse oximeter to read your oxygen level. They can read carbon monoxide levels on your finger. So there's no invasion. It's kind of new. For structural firefighting, we've done it for a long time. Every time we come out of a structure, we go into the medical tent or the ambulance and get tested. And if it's certain levels, automatic to the hospital, okay? But just be aware that they kind of conflict with fatigue or dehydration symptoms. They mimic the same. So If somebody's really confused or really not acting right, it's time for them to go to EMS and get checked out. Night operations, don't recommend it, but if you're out there, be visible, headlamps, safety reflective clothing. Remember, usually reflective can melt, so just be cautious of how close you are to fire. This trailer has reflective striping on the front and back. You know, just be more visible. For headlights shining or lights shining, hey, whoa, I thought we already cleared, if I was on the engine, and I'm like, wait, I already cleared that house, but why, there's something up there like a horse trailer. We need to go look at it, look and find out who's up there, okay? Driving, again, big hazard, poor visibility. This is a picture of someone evacuating during the campfire. You can't see anything, okay? So drive slow, even though we're scared and we want to get out of there, just drive slow because most likely you're going to crash before you even get out to safety, okay? And all the other roadway hazards we kind of already touched on. Access, bridge limits. How much does your vehicle weigh and trailer weigh? How much does it weigh after you load animals into it? These ranches don't have this bridge is 10-ton rated like the state highways, okay? Get out, stop your vehicle before you go over the bridge, look under the bridge. What is this bridge made out of? I don't know about down here, but up north, we have a lot of redwood tree bridges. Old redwood tree bridges. How much can they hold? No idea. It's a guess. Maybe it's time we park the trucks here, walk the animals down to the trailer over this bridge. So make sure you're looking at bridges. Narrow roads, turnarounds. If you're on the evac team, have a scout vehicle, make sure that there's a turnaround up ahead at that house. We don't want to get long 10-horse stock trailer up there and now have to back up a mile, okay? Oh, always face your vehicle. Once you do get to the property, always face the vehicle facing your escape route. So you're not having to jockey it around in the heat of the battle, okay? Always position your vehicle facing out first before you leave. Always have the vehicle running. If there's a lot of smoke impacting your motor, it will stall it out, okay? Plenty of times there's been fire engines that get stalled out and can't start because it's too smoky. They've been impacted too much. Come up with evac signals. I'm not going to take over your guys' procedures if you have procedures, but have an evac. If one person's at the vehicle and two are trying to get animals, if you hear me honk the horn 3 times, run back to the truck. Stop what you're doing, run back to the truck. I saw something or heard something over the radio that we need to leave or get into a safe spot. So have evacuation signals for your team. Animal handling. Okay, we've all been around it, but have we been around that person's animal? No. You don't know how they're going to react. We don't have an unknown amount of time to be at each property we're going to. Okay, a goal should be about 5 minutes per property. If you can't load all the animals in 5 minutes, shelter them in place somewhere and move on. Okay. Loading animals, very dangerous, so hopefully you know how to do that. How to calm a horse. I teach this to firefighters sometimes, you know, put rocks in a water bottle, you know, and they think it's a grain bucket. So we can coax them over. We can just rocks in a water bottle, okay? Don't have that limited amount of time. Again, 5 minutes, try to keep it at per property, depending on how many you're dealing with. Again, your safety, your team, public safety, animals last. So this was just like an all hazards kind of breakdown. Next section is all fire, wildland fire.